everybody, it's Lavender Town. And you know how a lot of adults think that every cartoon is for kids and then they inadvertently let their kids watch something really inappropriate? Well, today I'm going to be rectifying that by taking cartoons that are not for kids and making them adorable, basically changing whatever I need to in the plot and the character design to make it actually work well for kids. But first, a big shout out to the sponsor of this video, Honka Impact. I've talked to you guys about this game before, but they've just released a patch that adds in a really cute new system where you can take all the Valkyries and you can see them in a super cute chibi form, and you can basically just play with them in their free time and move them around and let them do different activities, and it's just super cute. If you haven't played in a while, you should definitely check this patch out, and if you've never played it before, check the link in the description and you can download it. It's completely free. So in honor of this dormitory system that they've added to Honkai Impact, I decided to take Kiana, the key character of the game and the first one you get to play as, and make her cute. Obviously she's already pretty adorable and she becomes even more adorable in the dormitory system, but I wanted to take my own hand at making this scene, which I think is particularly cool looking, and making it look harmless and adorable. This is a fun exercise and something I really recommend if you like stuff that's like pretty edgy. It's kind of fun to try to take scenes from that and make it really cute and endearing and like work for little kids. I've actually seen people make like fake children's books with like the plot to BioShock or whatever, but then they just take out any part that's like bad for kids and they give them like pastel-y cute designs, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take her guns away because that's a little threatening, and I'm going to give her a water squirt gun instead. So by that change, I've had to make her whole design into a special summer design, which is nice because it's super hot outside where I am right now. And so I gave her one squirt gun and then I switched out the other gun for a water balloon. And I also decided to give her a little sun hat, and I decided to change her bodysuit into a swimsuit. So the major change I made there was I turned this sort of black paneling on her bodysuit into just a pair of shorts, and then the top is sort of a full coverage bikini top that has the kind of paneling that you see under her chest. I moved that up, and then it really looks more like a bikini. I kept the braids, of course, and I kept the little clip that she has in her hair because I want her to still look like Kiana, of course. I'm not trying to completely erase her character. And I really went in and did a classic sort of anime style chibi for this. The trick to doing chibi designs is just to make those eyes really big, make the head really big, and minimize the body as much as you can. And then I tried to really sample and make sure that her colors were pretty on model, though I made more dramatic cell shading for the whole thing because I thought that would look cuter as well. In the end, it was really nostalgic doing this design because I used to draw like this all the time, and it's something I don't do as much anymore. But yeah, it's fun to draw in this sort of style. And in the end, I think she turned out pretty cute. I added these sort of cloudy blue eyes because I thought that looked even more adorable. So the first show that I'm going to cutify is a Netflix show that a lot of people took an interest in a couple years ago called Bojack Horseman. This has a really strange premise. Basically, it's a story about a washed up old celebrity who used to be really popular in the 90s, but now that he's getting older, he's having more trouble getting jobs, and he's sort of depressed and has like some substance abuse problems. And then on top of all of that, everyone in this universe is also an animal. And it's a really interesting sort of show, but it's definitely not for kids. A lot of it is about sort of feeling like the prime of your life is over and that everything going forward is just going to get worse and worse. And it's a very dark and sad show. So in order to make it kid-friendly, I am of course going to change up the designs of the characters a little bit. I'm going to make them generally just a lot cuter, and I tried to design them modeled after the 2D concept art for Zootopia because I thought that was a good sort of parallel. They both have these really vibrant animal-based worlds that feature animals all trying to sort of coexist together. So my pitch for the kid-style Bojack Horseman involves Bojack being a little bit younger and working as an actor for the first time. And so I'm going to take all the sleaziness out of the Hollywood scene. Instead, most of the drama will come between him and his agent, who is this cat girl right here. She is still going to have her sassy, abrasive personality, but it's going to be just played for some light laughs, and the element of Bojack sort of being sort of I don't want to say like an idiot, but like being sort of clueless while she's sort of the sharp and cutting one will be the main comedic element of the show. I wanted to keep in the cool like painty textures that they have in the actual show because I think that adds a lot of character, but other than that I just tried to soften everything, make it look a lot cuter and a lot more palatable to a younger audience. Next up is South Park, and surprisingly, considering this is one of the most controversial shows that I think anyone's ever seen, I think this is going to be the easiest to cutify and make kid-friendly because these are kids. Every main character in this story are kids already, and they're right in the perfect age for like a Cartoon Network style show. So for those of you who somehow don't know, South Park is an extremely crude show about a group of 5th graders, I think is about where they're at age-wise. They're definitely still in elementary school, but for the purposes of shock comedy, they're all really, really foul-mouthed, and the episodes usually start around some sort of celebrity controversy or whatever is the edgiest thing to talk about at the time. And they basically just, the characters are mainly sort of props for all the controversies and things that they can talk about in the episode. But for the purposes of this kids version, I'm going to change the style of the characters from that papercraft look that we see in South Park to more of a Recess and Gravity Falls sort of mixture that I made. I wanted to bring about Recess because that is a much older cartoon, and South Park is a very, very old show. I think it's like it's had over like 20 seasons, I think, which is like it's like 20 years of South Park. So I wanted it to be based on an older cartoon, and I thought that would be good. So other than changing the style, I also removed Cartman as a character altogether because I honestly think he can't be saved. And for the rest of them, here's my hot plan for making South Park essentially South Park but for kids. Just take kids celebrities like boy band members and like, you know, JoJo Siwa or whoever, and just make controversies about them, but make them all like really, really mild, like hilariously mild. It's like has something to do with them like preferring crunchy peanut butter over smooth or something like that, and there being a huge battle about that. Just basically take everything about South Park that's like gross and just like tone it back like 1,000 notches and then make it from an actual kid's perspective instead of like a cynical adult. Okay, so next up is Rick and Morty, and I was very tempted at first. I was thinking about going the Invader Zim route with it because it makes perfect sense. It's a dark, sci-fi-ish kind of comedy, and it melds perfectly with Rick and Morty, but honestly, like, what would even be the difference? Like, I guess, like, there would be a lot more episodes getting pulled because Jonah Vasquez went too far. So instead, I decided to go way hard and change it a lot, and so instead I'm kind of basing this roughly off of Professor Layton. So if you guys have ever played Professor Layton games, they're like the most wonderful thing in the whole world, and like if you haven't, like you should. They're like these DS games, and they're like for like they just have puzzles in them, and it's all very cute and Victorian. And basically I was just trying to think of something that's really friendly to kids and really innocent that has like this adult character and a little kid like hanging out all the time, and this is the one that popped into my head. So basically the whole deal with Rick and Morty, for those of you whose IQ aren't high enough to understand, it's basically a super crude version of Back to the Future where there's this raving mad scientist named Rick and this anxiety-ridden child named Morty, and basically Morty's being taken around on all of these cross-dimensional adventures just as sort of this punching bag who can basically be killed infinite times, and all of them can be destroyed a million times because there's always another dimension to jump into, and there's always a version of Rick or Morty that's still alive somewhere. So my ideal childhood version of this show would basically just be that Rick is suddenly a really nurturing and kind version of himself. He's like a good grandfather to Morty, and Morty gradually gets more self-confidence and and learns science from Rick rather than just sort of being the unwilling subject of whatever Rick's tests are. And in the end, they just go on interdimensional adventures that don't end in them getting torn apart by like space beasts. And yeah, it would basically be the same show but with a pastel color palette and basically Rick being like a good person. Last up is Futurama, and I was really torn between doing Simpsons or Futurama. I knew I had to do one of them, but Futurama is actually really close to my heart, and I really enjoyed this show. It's made me cry, which a lot of shows in this genre typically don't get any kind of significant emotion out of me, but this one did. I don't even know, I mean, it's definitely not a kid's cartoon, but I definitely don't think it's quite as crude or off-putting as a lot of the other ones in this list. It sort of walks a weird line where like they definitely talk about like alcohol and prostitution and things that children's shows should never really talk about, but they don't actually go over the line in such a degree that like it feels like a true blue kind of South Park edgelord show. It kind of feels like Bob's Burgers, I guess, where it's like definitely not for kids, but it's also not for kids. I guess it kind of depends on like what your parents are comfortable with you watching and like how old you are. It's sort of one of those medium shows. But anyway, it's basically this show about a guy named Fry who falls asleep. Well, he doesn't really fall asleep. He accidentally gets frozen in a cryogenics lab when he's delivering a pizza there, and he wakes up like way in the future, and everything's different, and he's basically like this like embarrassing caveman to all of these future aliens and people, and he sort of falls in love with this girl named Leela, who's like this mutant girl, and he ends up being a delivery boy again deep into the future, but he has to deliver things in a spaceship, and it's just a really cute, weird, funny show that I quite enjoyed. There's definitely some bad episodes in there, but I think in general it's pretty fun. So stylistically, I was trying to model it after Gravity Falls, but as far as the actual show's plot and the way I would change it, it would probably be a bit more like Kim Possible, with Leela as the primary character and Fry as sort of her romantic interest and her sort of comrade in all of her adventures. So I would obviously keep the sci-fi setting and all the future stuff, but I would really kidify it and focus on the parts that would be really interesting for kids. So that does it for my kidification episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you've seen any of these shows or if you like them, or just generally what you thought. Thank you so much again to Honka Impact for supporting the video. Definitely check out the link to the new patch in the description and check out the game. It's really fun. I will see you guys next time. Big thank you to my patrons, including Scott Peterson, Christy Stewart, Payne Hamill, The Artsy Moose, Elizabeth Albin, Cal Popone, Cameo Sparkle, Hanuki, Zixith, Ollie, Nekosama, Hope Chilsum, Abriana, Trassomaniac, Micah Dactyl, Okamore, Matthew Kunke, Blep, Sergeant Pendulum, Lena Christine, Baba Green, Taka, Lovely, Mystic, Enzo Jobert, Your Boy ST, JJ Jade, Lib Lib Blah, and Addy Visual.